Trains. Sometimes we forget that these massive metal machines helped make this country what it is today. But did you ever stop to think what happens when these trains get to the end of the line? It's not like they can pull a U-E, unless, of course, someone gives them a hand. The history of the train goes back nearly 200 years to industrial England, and trains have been transporting goods and people across the globe ever since. 14 historical locomotives call the Henry Ford home today, with great names like the Torch Lake, the Edison, and the mighty Allegheny, the biggest steam locomotive ever built in America. Who doesn't love trains? They transport us back to a simpler time. But what happens when a train gets to the end of the line? How does it turn around? The innovation was something called the Roundhouse. And in the early 1900s, there were about 10,000 of them in use to repair the locomotives and send them off in different directions. The Henry Ford's Matt Anderson showed me how it was done. So what are we doing right now?
We are turning a 38-ton locomotive on a 42-ton turntable with nothing more than our own brute strength.
Okay. All right, so what is the purpose of this turntable?
Well, here at our site, we're using the turntable to access the various stalls in the Roundhouse.
And the Roundhouse is like a big service station.
It is, exactly. Locomotives require a great deal of maintenance, especially steam locomotives. Every day you spend out on the line, you've got to spend a day back in the shop, cleaning things out, clearing it out, and preparing it for the next day's run.
I'm no bodybuilder, and yet this is pretty easy.
It's surprisingly easy, but the turntable itself is so well balanced, and if the locomotive's positioned right at dead center, one person can do this without much difficulty.
I mean, it's sort of like a giant Lazy Susan.
It's exactly like a giant Lazy Susan.
And I love Lazy Susan. Do you think the locomotive is getting dizzy right now?
I think so. This is not its first spin around, though, so it's probably used to it.
At what point does the train throw up?
After me.
So this locomotive is 38 tons.
Yes.
The Allegheny locomotive is 600 tons.
It is. It's a different story. We wouldn't be turning that by hand on this turntable.
That's because the awesome Allegheny, built in 1941, was one of the most colossal steam-powered locomotives ever made. Designed for pulling heavy coal trains over the Allegheny Mountains of West Virginia, this baby is so corpulent they were barely able to move it inside the Henry Ford Museum, having to widen the door jambs just to squeeze it through. So just like the record turntable, the railroad turntable went out of style.
That's right. The diesel locomotive takes over for the steam locomotive starting in the 1930s, but especially after World War II. And diesels just require far less maintenance than steam locomotives, so railroads no longer needed these elaborate roundhouses with all these servicing facilities. So, as a consequence, there are very few of them left today.
This is the next exercise craze, I guarantee you.
One of the nicknames for these turntables is an Armstrong Turntable, probably for obvious reasons.
Oh, hangnail. Let me know if you need any help. Okay. He's got this.